Turn to Romans 12.
All right, you going?
Romans 12. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, I hope you had a good spring break, but 2 weeks ago we talked about presenting our bodies as living sacrifices, not being conformed to the world. Talked a little bit about spiritual gifts, how God gifts the church for different purposes as gifts of grace, to edify the body, to build up the body. And what we're going to look at tonight from Romans 12 is the signs of a true Christian. What is a true Christian? What should their life look like? Okay? Now, it doesn't mean that when you do these things, it makes you Christian. This shows you what happens when a person has been transformed, when they're not conformed to the world. Okay? That's right. So, Romans 12, 9 to 21. If somebody would please read that passage for us, and then we'll get into the notes.
Love must be without hypocrisy. Abhor what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another with mutual love, showing eagerness and honoring one another. Do not lag in zeal. Be enthusiastic in spirit. Serve the Lord. Rejoice in hope. Endure in suffering. Persist in prayer. Contribute to the needs of the saints. Pursue hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty.
Yep,
okay. Haughty, but associate with the lowly. Do not be conceited. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Consider what is good before all people, if possible, so far as it depends on you. Live peaceably with all people. Do not avenge yourselves, dear friends, but give place to God's wrath. For it is written, "Vengeance is mine; I will repay," says the Lord. Rather, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him a drink. For in doing this, you will be heaping burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good.
Okay. There's a lot of commands here, right? And Paul has not given many commands up to this point. Up through Romans 1 through 11, it's been a lot of theology. And he's been explaining how we're made right with God, what is the gospel, how is a person declared right with God. And so he hasn't given us much to do yet. But now, what Paul does is he's been discussing spiritual gifts, and now he's going to describe the Spirit-filled life. Okay? And so, here in your notes, Paul emphasizes the attitudes of those who exercise the spiritual gifts. He doesn't just tell us how he gifts people, but how do you use those gifts? Remember, everyone who's a Christian has at least one spiritual gift, and we should be active in our faith to discover what those gifts are. Question is, how do you do those things? Okay, and so Romans 12, 9 through 21 is an explanation of how you should use your spiritual gifts. Because, back to your notes, it is possible to use a spiritual gift in an unspiritual way. It's possible to use a spiritual gift in an unspiritual way.
Does that mean it's bad if it's unspiritual? Is that the point here?
Yeah, you can use your spiritual gifts in a sinful way. You can use them in a way that's not being Spirit-led. You can use your gifts in a way that's selfish. You can use your gifts in a way that points to you instead of to the Lord. There's lots of ways you can do it. And so Paul gives, in this passage, a list of ways that the Christian should live a life that is pleasing to God. How can you live a life that is pleasing to God? This is going to be probably one of the most practical passages that we'll look at in Romans. If we are truly filled with the Spirit, if the Spirit has given us gifts, and if we are Spirit-filled and Spirit-led, then it will affect our relationship with others. It will affect our relationship with others. Now, when we talk about our relationship with others, there's two different groups of people. First, our relationship with believers should glorify God. The way we live with one another as Christians should glorify God. But we don't just live these things out in front of Christians. We live them out in front of non-Christians. And so our relationship with enemies should draw them to God. Our relationship with those who are outside of Christ, who are not Christians, the way we live, the way we exercise our gifts, should draw people to God. Alright? So, that's how we're going to break up this passage tonight. The first 7 verses, or 8 verses, verses 9 to 16, talks about a Christian's relationship with other believers. The second half of the passage is going to talk about a Christian's relationship with their enemies. Okay, and so that's how we're going to break it up tonight. Alright, so here we go. Let's start. Romans 12, verse 9. Now we have a lot of cross references tonight, so be ready to read as we go through these. Let's read Romans 12, verse 9 again. It says, "Let love be genuine. Hate or abhor what is evil. Hold fast to what is good." Okay? The relationship of the Christian to other believers must be characterized by love. He says in verse 9, let love be genuine. Let it be real. Our love for one another should be genuine. That means that it must not be hypocritical love. Your love must not be hypocritical. You can't be a hypocrite as you love others. You can't say that you love them and pretend that you love them, but not actually demonstrate that you love them. 1 John 4, verse 20, someone read this for us.
If anyone says, "I love God," and hates his brother, he is a liar. For he who does not love his brother whom he has seen cannot love God whom he has not seen.
Okay, so let love be genuine. Don't say one thing and then let it be contradicted by your life. Our love for one another should not be hypocritical love. It should be honest love. Honest. Not hypocritical, but honest. 1 Timothy 1, verse 5. Someone read that for us.
The aim of our charge is love. The aim of our charge is love that issues from a pure heart and a good conscience and a sincere faith.
Okay, so that's what our love should be like. Now, part of loving someone means also hating the things that would threaten those people. Okay? And so you cannot claim to love someone unless you also hate what might threaten them. Look back at Romans 12, verse 9. It says, let love be genuine, and then it says hate. Let your love be genuine, but hate. And what are we to hate? Evil. Hate what is evil, cling to or hold fast to what is good. So, we must hate what is evil. And then he says, we hate what is evil, but we must hold to what is good. We hold on to what's good. Hold on to what's good and hate what is evil. I've given you an example here, and I've actually probably said this in here before. You cannot claim to love babies if you also do not hate abortion. That's the next blank. You can't claim that you love babies and then say that you're in favor of abortion. Because abortion is the very thing that threatens the baby that you say that you love. Does that make sense? So in order to love a baby, you have to hate the thing that actually threatens them. You might think of another example of where hatred of one thing shows love for something else or someone else.
either shows hatred of persecution.
Could.
Or hate for racism.
Yeah. Yeah, if you love people, you're going to hate racism. That's a good one. If you love integrity and honor and honesty, you're going to hate cheating. If you love the family, you're not gonna hate the foster system, but you're gonna want to address the issue of the foster system. Does that make sense? Like you're not just gonna ignore it if you say that you love the family and that you love children, right? So that's just an example. Now, Paul has been talking about spiritual gifts, right? Remember that? He goes through this list of spiritual gifts in Romans 12, right before this passage. How do you use your spiritual gifts? He gives this long list of gifts, and the very next verse in verse 9 says, let love be genuine. In other words, there are many spiritual gifts. All of you are gifted in some way, but your spiritual gift, no matter what it is, has to function in love. If you're not using your spiritual gift out of love for other people, then you're not using your spiritual gift properly. Notice, and this is just something to notice in your Bible, when you read 1 Corinthians 12, which is the whole chapter is about spiritual gifts, guess what follows 1 Corinthians 12? 1 Corinthians 13. And what's 1 Corinthians 13 all about? Love, right? It's read at weddings because it's all about love. It's intentional for Paul to follow Romans 12 or 1 Corinthians 12 about spiritual gifts with the chapter about love. Because if you don't use your spiritual gifts in love, then it's a clanging cymbal, right? It's not really helpful. Also notice that love is the first mentioned fruit of the Spirit. Remember this list? Galatians 5, verse 22. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, self-control. It's important that he puts love first. Okay. Remember what he says in 1 Corinthians 13 about love? He says the greatest, these great attributes are faith, hope, and love. What's the greatest out of faith, hope, and love? Why?
Because all the other ones are rooted in love?
Maybe. It's not what I was thinking. Any idea?
Well, what were you thinking?
I'm curious what you think. Why would Paul say the greatest of these is love? Out of faith, hope, and love.
Because he's a hopeless romantic?
Maybe.
Can't have the other two without love. In a way.
Okay. Here, what?
It's the greatest.
It's the greatest commandment. That's a good point. Here's one thing I think. Which of those three are going to last forever?
Love.
There will be a day when your faith will turn to sight. And there will be a day when your hope will be fulfilled when you see Jesus face to face. But love will endure forever. And so you're going to love Jesus. Does that make sense?
That's why he's a preacher.
No, does that make sense though? You're going to love forever. Love will never stop. When you get to heaven, you're not going to stop loving. You will stop having faith. You won't need faith anymore because you'll see Jesus. And you won't need hope anymore because you will have your hope fulfilled. But you'll never stop loving. Right? And so love is crucially important when it comes to displaying the fruit of the Spirit and the gifts of the Spirit. Right? So, love, he starts off with love. But look at verse 10. He says, love one another with brotherly affection. Outdo one another in showing honor. So this flows out of love, and he says, love one another with brotherly affection. Christians, this is according to Jesus and Paul, must love other Christians as though they were their own family. family. Love them with brotherly affection. How many of you have a sibling? How many of you love your sibling? Sometimes, I understand. Most of us would probably say that our siblings are the closest people to us. I have a lot of friends, and I have a lot of people that are close to me. But I don't have a friend closer than my brother. And we don't see each other much, but when we hang out, we're best friends. My sisters are really close to me. And so I have a deep love for them that needs to overflow into my relationship with other people, which means you guys in the room, as Christians, we ought to treat each other like our own brothers. Sometimes it requires tough love, a punch to the throat, because you need it. But most of the time, just a big bear hug, right? Go hang out and be brothers and hang out and love one another that way. Ladies, all right, you love one another as your sisters. And guys, you love the girls like your sister, which means you don't go off mistreating your sister. You don't try to get one up on your sister. You don't try to take advantage of your sister. So if you're in a relationship, boyfriend or girlfriend, you don't take advantage of them. They're your sister. Now, I know it's a little different. But, what if guys were to start treating all girls like they treated their sister? Do you think that would improve relationships? Yeah.
How you going for it?
He's like, what? What I do?
There's a lot of people I wish that would have treated me more like a sister and honored me, and then there's people that I wish you probably would have treated more like a sister too. I mean, just being married, so we're not like, I'm just saying, like, you can really make choices that in the moment feel good and seem right, but aren't. And if you honor one another, you're going to really be grateful for that when you're married.
Yes. So, dudes, and I'm talking to the guys because you lead the relationship. You set the pace. Guys, you're the thermostat. She's the thermometer. You set the temperature. She reveals what the temperature is of the relationship. You want to know how the relationship's going? Look at how the girl is growing spiritually. If you want to know how it's going to grow, look at how the guy's leading. Okay? Now, point is, guys, while you're dating, treat them like your sister. When you get married, you can treat them like your wife. Okay?
Right.
But until they're married, treat them like your sister. And it will save you a lot of pain. Emotional pain. It will save you a lot of pain. Okay? So, anyways, Christians must love other Christians as though they were their own family. And the world will know that we belong to Christ by how we love each other. The world will know we belong to Christ by how we love each other. Jesus said this in John 13, verses 34 and 35.
John.
Megan's doing double duty now.
He's really going after technology,
Yeah. They don't go after their toys. He has 10,000 toys here, and he doesn't want any of them. He wants the camera, the MacBook, and the PS4. That's all he wants. Someone read what Jesus said about how they'll know we're Christians by the way we love one another.
A new command I give to you, that you love one another just as I have loved you. You also are to love one another. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another.
This is how you'll know that you're disciples of Jesus, by the way you love one another. And so, how do we do this? Look at verse 10 again. Love one another with brotherly affection. Outdo one another in showing honor. Scripture commands that we honor others above ourselves. We honor other people above ourselves.
What was the blank before that?
Christ. This comes from Philippians 2, verses 3 and 4. Someone read that one.
Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others.
Paul almost makes this a competition. He says, outdo one another in showing honor. Make it a competition between yourselves of who's going to show the other person more honor. Could you imagine what that would look like if we stopped trying to promote ourselves and make ourselves look good, and we spent all of our time trying to outdo the other person to make the other person look better than we are? Like, how countercultural would that be? Because our whole world is based on, look at me, right? My space. And nobody uses MySpace anymore, but they use...
Were y'all even born when MySpace came out?
They use iPhones, right? Facebook, and it's mainly my face that I'm putting on Facebook, right? It's all about us and self-promotion. What if Christians outdid one another in spiritual competition, trying to outdo the other person in making the other person look great?
Different kind of one-upmanship.
Yeah, that's actually a good competition, where you try to see who can make the other person look the best. And what happens when people are doing that to one another? You're both being exalted, but you're not doing it yourself. You're being honored by other people, and it's mutual. And so, if that's going to happen, that demands that we humble ourselves below others as Jesus did. We have to humble ourselves.
And it's a lot less exhausting than competing with people, too. You think, oh, it'll be so exhausting to take care of this other person, make this other person look good, but it's probably a lot less exhausting than
Trying to elevate yourself. Y'all know, we always do this. We're just sinners. We can't help it. Y'all ever tried to tell a story, and then the first thing that comes out of the next person's mouth is, oh, that's nothing. Let me tell you what happened to me. Right? How many of you have had your wisdom teeth taken out? All right? How many did you have taken out? How many over here?
5.
oh, what? There's such a thing?
4, 2. Have you ever tried to tell your 2 wisdom tooth story? Have you ever tried to say, hey, the other day I got wisdom teeth pulled out? Well, how many did you get pulled? 2. You know what's going to happen? You won't get to tell your story, because the 4 wisdom tooth people are going to parachute in, cut you off at the pass, and say, ooh, I had 4 wisdom teeth taken out. And then just when they think they're proud of their 4, Colin walks up and says, I had 5 taken out. And so you have those stories where we just want to one-up one another.
That's like an
right?
extra one that nobody knew about. So they went and took that out too.
Do y'all know what I'm talking about? You try to
Yeah.
tell something that you did, and then they immediately want to talk about something they did better. And it's like, hey, here's you, me. You, me. See the difference here? You, me. And we do that all the time. And you're like, yeah, now I see the difference. I didn't see it before. Thanks for pointing that out. Right? Why do we do that? Because we want to elevate ourselves. We want to exalt ourselves. And Paul says to outdo one another in showing honor. One of the best things you can do when somebody tells their story is say, wow, that's pretty cool. And just leave it at that. You don't have to outdo them. You don't have to one-up them. Unless they ask you, and then say, okay. Like, I heard a comedian say one time that he wishes that he could have been one of the 7 or 9 astronauts who walked on the moon, so that whenever the me monster shows up at the party talking about me, myself, and me, and I did this, and oh, man, they tell all their great stories, he's just sitting over there in the corner waiting for this person to finish, and then he just says, I walked on the moon. Because there's no story that can trump walking on the moon, right? If I just had that one story, I could trump everybody's story. Rather than trying to trump one another, let's try to outdo one another in showing honor. And what that means, and this is in your notes, we must learn to be genuinely glad when God blesses and uses others, even more so than He uses us. That is true Christian love. This can show up in jealousy when you get jealous when someone else got a position you applied for and you didn't get it and you thought you deserved it more than the other person, and rather than feeling genuinely happy for that person, you start getting jealous and start trying to justify it of why you deserved it more than they did.
Get ready, RAs, tomorrow. Or RA wannabes.
Not just RAs, that's going to happen your whole life.
Yeah.
Where someone is going to get some award on awards day that you thought you deserved. They're going to get some scholarship that you wanted. They're going to get some promotion at work that you didn't get. And you are going to struggle with being genuinely excited for them. And Paul says, true Christian love is to rejoice with those who rejoice. To come alongside them and celebrate with them. Outdo one another in showing honor. But that's not all he says. Look at verse 11. Do not be slothful in zeal. Be fervent in spirit. Serve the Lord. What this means when it says do not be slothful in zeal, what does slothful mean? Lazy. What does zeal mean? Passionate. Yeah, this passionate energy. Don't be slothful. Don't be lazy when you're passionate. Look at your notes. Anything we do in serving the Lord demands enthusiasm and care to do our best. And what that means for us, we must avoid a half-hearted pursuit of Christ, but serve Him with passion. Dude.
He is so loud. I'm sorry. I'll take him at halftime and go fake him or something.
Is that last one this?
Do our best.
And then we must avoid a half.
Yeah, we're coming up. We're good. We don't miss this line due to the cute baby in the middle of the room. Don't be half-hearted in your pursuit of Jesus. If there's anything you ought to go hard after, it's pursuing Christ. And you live in a culture that is completely fine with your mediocrity. They're fine with you just going half-hearted. They're fine with you just getting by to get things done. In fact, that's what the majority of students at Shorter do in their classes, is they do the bare minimum to make the grade just to get by. Right? Don't be that way. Especially when it comes to your pursuit of knowing Christ. Don't be half-hearted. Paul says this in Colossians 3, verse 23. I skipped Philippians 2. You can go to the next one. Sorry. Colossians 3. Therefore, whatever you do, work heartily, or work with all your heart, as if you're doing it for the Lord and not for men. Okay?
You know, Josh, I've been reading about the armor of God lately, doing a study on that, and the Priscilla Shire is the one that writes the Bible study, and she talks about a lot about when we get lazy, like that's what the devil wants us to do. He wants us to get lazy in our Christian walk and do things half-hearted, because then we're not as passionate for the Lord and we aren't as effective, and he can attack us easier. When we're not on our guard, when we're slacking on the job and we're slacking guarding the gate, to our hearts, then the devil can find his way in very easily, because we're sleeping on the job or we're, whatever the case may be, in protecting our heart from his darts. And so the devil is looking for those opportunities.
Laziness and indifference prevents good and allows evil to prosper. Proverbs 18, verse 9. Someone read this one for us.
Whoever is slack in his work is a brother to him who destroys.
Whoever is slack in his work is a brother to him who destroys. Here's the truth. This is the next line in your notes.
Give me 2 seconds.